Mark Schauer says a lot of times is, oh, we fixed the pre-existing condition thing. Well, Michigan already had pre-existing conditions in Blue Cross Blue Shield, so I don't know what he's talking about, like he is some hero in Michigan for pre-existing conditions. And believe me, you know, I have a son with a pre-existing condition, and I don't think that if I don't win this election, that me wanting to get a job again should be reliant upon the fact that my son has a pre-existing condition and I can't get health care for him or me, and so I can't get that job. Or when he grows up, he can't get a job for pre-existing condition. There has to be a fix for that, but we really already have it here in Michigan.
Let me continue on by just saying, in inviting you to kind of look at her model, when she takes that model and puts it in practice, one of the key components of that model outside of primary care physician is that there's this whole component of self-management of care. So it brings back the responsibility of your own care to yourself and just learning how to begin to management. So there's some level of responsibility on the patient's portion, whereas specifically with diabetes, which is what she's been working with, it's really kind of been left up to the healthcare professional to figure out how to deal with some of this.
I agree with all that. The government scares me. And I get scared when the government starts getting involved in decisions that are made on healthcare, especially primary care. Because they say, oh, you eat too much. You know, you're not gonna rate this coverage or that coverage. You know, it's kind of like the military where you're overweight, so we're gonna have to kick you out because you're not meeting our standards. I get very scared when the government gets involved and they start putting their little diagrams or spectrum on what is or what is not acceptable for where you're supposed to be at. Or you're not running 3 miles a day. What's wrong with you? You know, we're gonna cut back a little bit here. Or you don't rate this because you're not taking care of yourself. You know, those things worry me. But I'm all for primary care. It's just the emphasis needs to be everywhere.
I just have a quick question. Number 3 on your brochure, you talk about demanding that Congress have time to read the bills before voting.
Yeah.
And I wondered how you would propose that, or how you would accomplish that, or.
We need to have a mandatory time period that Congress would be given to read the bill. President Obama said himself he would put it on his website for everybody to read. You know, I thought it was like 30 days before the bill's voted upon. And it's going to be debated all in the open on C-SPAN. He had good ideas as a candidate when talking about transparency. You know, I think that's what frustrates people a lot about President Obama. He was talking about change, and he talked like a moderate, that they were fiscally disciplined and fiscally conservative, or moderate at least. And the Democrats had a good argument back then because the Republicans were so undisciplined. But when they got into Congress and got into the administration, you know, their true colors showed where, you know, it's like the scorpion and the toad. They just couldn't help themselves. You know, and that's how I would approach, you know, having transparency and a mandatory period.
Would that be lawmaking, or how would that be accomplished?
I believe the House makes their own internal rules, and that would be a rule that they would set and have to follow and not have an exemption for, unless it was like a national security issue that required immediate action. I mean, I think of everything through the lens of national security, like farming issues and trade issues and those sorts of things. China owns all of our debt essentially, and you know, we're printing money off at the cyclic rate, and China's buying it, and they're saying they're not going to buy it as much anymore if we don't get ourselves in shape. It's funny, a communist country's telling us that. And President Obama said, oh, don't worry, we have another buyer. You know who the other buyer is? It's the Treasury Department. We're buying our own money. So I'm very scared that China, who owns all our money, who has a lot of our manufacturing base, is not our best friend, doesn't have our best interests at heart. Small things like them sending tainted food that killed some of our animals over from China over here. Recently, while I read in Wall Street Journal, they killed 6 of their own kids through tainted dairy products. You know, if we start outsourcing our foodstuffs like we have our manufacturing, I'm very concerned that we won't, this republic won't long endure if we have, you know, the specter of a rising red China.
Well, we're already getting food from China.
I know we are, and that's what worries me.
They're making medicines now, too.
Yeah.
And we just need to buy some more China products, cars, food, and so on.
Well, here's a small example. I know we have to wrap it up, but when I was in Iraq, I was driving into Fallujah in my convoys, and I did 100 convoys at least into Fallujah downtown. And I was driving basically bags of pickup trucks. So we didn't have up Armour Humvees then.